what I'm going to show you is something that has actually cost me 3 years and multiple six figures. And it's probably the same mistake that you are making right now. And if I don't deliver this promise of how to build a 100K a month LinkedIn sales system with AI in the next 45 minutes, you have complete permission to leave early. So what I'm going to show you is how to build this scalable, predictable demand gen engine to add an additional 100K a month using LinkedIn with AI, without cold DMs, without leveraging ghostwriters, or most importantly, increasing your headcount. Let's go on to the next slide. So the trust-led revolution. We all know that LinkedIn client acquisition for businesses has completely changed. Like for the operators on this call, we know that the old playbook is dead. Cold outreach, generic content, and relying on referrals, it no longer works. Or it works to some extent, but it's got you hitting a ceiling on where you want to be. And today's buyers, they demand that authenticity, they demand that you have credibility, and they demand that you have genuine connection before they will even consider booking a call. So in this training, I'm going to show you how to build the AI-powered LinkedIn pipeline that attracts but also converts qualified buyers without posting daily or sending spammy DMs. But what does this actually look like? It's composed of the three things, the three promises that lead to having that predictable demand gen engine. Number one, we're going to install a trust-led outbound system. So this is how we're going to build genuine connections that convert prospects into buyers without feeling pushy or salesy. Number two, we're going to replace the spammy tactics of poorly done LinkedIn lead generation, and we're going to replace that with leverage that AI can give you. So no more spam, it's just AI that's going to help you to do that heavy lifting so you can bring warmed up buyers straight to you. And third of all, a 30-minute daily system to streamline this entire piece so you're no longer living in the DMs, burning out, so you can basically do everything when it pertains to your LinkedIn client acquisition in less than 30 minutes a day. So who is this webinar for? Like, ultimately, it's for the person I was like 6 months ago. But ultimately, you might be a successful founder or a coach, and you're probably running an executive or leading a coaching practice or maybe running an agency. You're generating between 300K to about 5 million in revenue a year annually, but you're struggling with that unpredictable lead flow. And ultimately, guys, you're just tired of feast and famine cycles that make revenue planning virtually impossible. And this is what I've heard from, I believe I've spoken to about 400 founders this year on sales calls. They have literally said this. You've built something valuable, right? But you're constantly worried about, where will my next client come from? So why do most LinkedIn strategies fail? It's to do with 4 simple reasons. It's to do with the fact that it's weak positioning that blends in. You look the same as everybody else on LinkedIn. And as a result, people are going after similar alternatives. 2, you're posting content, but it doesn't convert. You're stuck in the activity trap. And I call that this theory is we do everything that influencers tell us, and we still don't get the result that we want. And we don't look visible and we don't look valuable in the eyes of our buyers. Number 3, even when you try to reach out to your prospects, right? It's generic outreach and you feel like it's transactional. You feel like it destroys your reputation. It's because it does. And each spammy message makes it that much harder for you to build genuine relationships on LinkedIn that ultimately lead to clients, right? Or worse still, what I hear from so many founders, you get no response. And I know because I've been there, right? And you simply one of the biggest things as well being a founder is you're not trying to be an influencer. You're looking for a way to predictably get in front of the right sort of people so you can speak to. And you just don't have the time to build an effective LinkedIn motion. So imagine this instead. Imagine this where you have an additional 5 to 10 qualified deals coming in each month with ideal perfect prospects. Your calendar is going to fill with those prospects who are ready to buy and ultimately understand your value. You're going to stop doing zero. You're not going to do any more manual outreach. The AI is going to handle all of the personalized messaging for you so you can focus on what you do best and what makes you money, closing deals and serving clients. And ultimately, as well, you're going to be seen as the obvious choice. Prospects are going to come to you pre-sold from your content, seeing you as the clear category leader in your space. Now, this is one of my clients, Ferry, who is actually up on stage there with a speaking opportunity that he got leverage from LinkedIn. That's the power of founder-led branding, guys. Now, who am I and why should you ultimately listen? Over the last 3.5 years, I've established myself as one of the leading authorities for client acquisition on LinkedIn in the UK. And no, it's not just because I say so, it's because the data does. Now, over the last 4 years, I've actually helped to build a 75,000 person audience on LinkedIn. I've published 950 posts. I've also overseen about 10,000 pieces of client content, and I've been ranked in the top 5 in the UK by the leading influencer authority Favicon for lead gen twice. Now, my content has reached about 50 million people, so I like to think I know something about capturing attention with content, but more importantly, the way in which that can be converted. So our clients over the last 3.5 years have generated 125 million in pipe, 4 million in client revenue, and that's founders across Fortune 500 brands, Forbes 30 under 30, even Shark Tank winners. It's been a journey, but also just normal people like small, medium-sized businesses. And it's from that I've been grateful enough to have closed about 1.2 million for myself from LinkedIn and scaling my agency to 100K months with a team of 4. Now, I'm not teaching theory here, guys. This is from the trenches of 3.5 years of actually solving the problem of what does it take to make LinkedIn work. And this is the exact system that took me 3.5 years ago from making a $40,000 salary as a sales rep to finishing the year at $250,000 this year, all from LinkedIn in 3.5 years. So, my story. I've been where you are, right? And this is how I went from a burned out operator to leveraging growth with AI. So for 2 years, I ran my agency Atticus, and we struggled to break 10K a month in profit, despite peak months of 50K a month, right? We had a team of 15 people. We had razor thin margins at about 20%, and every day I felt like I was stuck in this pressure cooker. I was chasing deals just to survive, just to meet those fixed costs. And if I didn't hit it, I knew I'd be losing money hand over fist each month. What wasn't working for me? I built my business the old way. I threw headcount at problems. And as we scaled, as I said, those margins got tighter and our fixed costs got tighter. And as a result, when LinkedIn algorithm changed at the start of last year, our inbounds plummeted. We were doing 20 to 30, and then it went to 10 to 15 a month. So at that point, I was thinking, God, what is going to happen? So in, I believe, February this year, we'd hit a revenue high month at the time. This was the Canon event when I realized we were doing stuff the wrong way. We just hit $60,000 in revenue. It was a high for us. And I ring up my accountant and I say, hey, look, we must have had a profit high last month. And the line sort of is dead for a bit. And he goes, you made out $4,000. And I'm like, $4,000? I'm like, how? It's like, you've got fixed costs. You've got a team of 15 people, Luke. And it was from that moment I knew that we needed a breakthrough. And that next month, when I was speaking to my investor, Alex, I think you might know him. He's one of the old owner of Aware, and he runs an investment portfolio. We got investment from him in another NASDAQ group for Atticus, the agency. But he told me on a call that he knew somebody who was making 70K a month with a team of 4 using AI to sell high margin systems. And I realized that everything I'd built up to that point was built the hard, outdated way. So what happened next? I set about remodeling everything in my business, guys. I leaned into AI-powered acquisition systems. I cracked the human-sounding content with GPTs on ChatGPT to scale my content and voice without hours writing. We trained an AI SDR as me in the DMs to book those qualified meetings and increase calls to 30 to 50 a month. Now that also shifted us towards doing a done with you offer, which resulted in 270K of revenue in the last 4 months. And as I said, $250,000 this year in profit. So I don't say this to be braggadocious. I say this because I have been where some of you might be if you're on this webinar right now. And it's because I realized that it's the era of the leveraged operator, right? If you're still stuck scaling with throwing like effort at a wall, putting bodies at a problem, we're losing time, margin, and freedom. And that's the whole reason why we set up a business in the first place. And using AI, you can power your demand engine in this way so you can be one of those service businesses that not only thrives, but accelerates in 2026. So look, if you're where I was, overwhelmed, burned out, underpaid, there's another way. And that is what we're going to go through today. And these are some of the things that are from like our inboxes, where this is like having a system where we got like 300 leads coming in a month with literally less than 30 minutes of effort per day. Now, at the end of this webinar, make sure you stay on to the end because we're going to be offering some free bonuses, about $1,200 worth of bonuses. And we're also going to be doing a Q&A at the end. So if you've got any questions at all, you can ask them to me. Now, the 3 secrets you're going to master that will ultimately determine whether you'll get LinkedIn to work next year. Number 1, you don't need more content. You need category leader positioning. That makes you the obvious choice. That's how you're different from other people on LinkedIn. Number 2, you need an AI-powered, founder-led content engine. And this is how founders can attract those ideal clients on LinkedIn without being full-time creators in under 30 minutes a week. And then thirdly, we need that trust-led outbound and the Atticus tech stack, which is going to allow you to book those meetings with the prospects hiding in your LinkedIn network that already like, know, and trust you with AI. Now, I'm going to peel back the curtain on the exact exclusive tech stack that people usually pay us $14,000 on a 3-month implementation consulting deal to do. Now, these elements, work together. So it's a self-reinforcing system that as you slowly get more traction, it builds and builds every week. So what does this look like? What is that strategy to add the 100K a month leveraging LinkedIn? And it's composed of this. We want you to look different on LinkedIn. We're going to position you. You've got to find out who is that dream client who's going to pay you premium fees, but be 20% of the effort for 80% of the revenue. Sounds trite, but that is really the case. You need to get clarity on the language matrix, which is what is the exact language that your clients need to hear to really activate them that, hey, this guy feels like he's reading my mind right now, like when I read his content, and I feel like I innately trust him. Thirdly, we need to implement an indoctrination content ladder, which is ultimately a series of beliefs to take somebody from being a skeptic, where the trust is really low, to being like a devout, like true diehard follower, where they're ready to work with you and like come into your like system as a client. Next, once you've positioned, which I'm going to break down in depth in this webinar, we need the attraction system. And this is about building brand and demand. And ultimately, we're trying to do one thing with this. We're trying to create content on LinkedIn that's going to get the likes, comments, views, and connections. I call this LinkedIn intent. And that builds from consistent content that builds your brand on your profile, connecting with the right customers with the way that it's written, and ultimately having a system that allows you to actually get content which is going to attract those right sort of people. And finally, the third piece of this entire strategy of when we implement this for clients, you need a way of when you actually take a LinkedIn go-to-market to market, you need a way to get points on the scoreboard ASAP. And I call this the revenue speed run. We're going to look at what are those low-hanging fruits, which will equal immediate revenue for somebody within 90 days of implementing this system. Second, we're going to look at the process of trusted outbound. How do you actually have daily conversations, leverage with AI, with ideal prospects who like, know, and trust you? And you can move towards those response rates of anywhere from like 15% all the way up to like 60 to 70%. Sounds wild, but you're going to see the receipts. And finally, you having the keys to not be held to ransom by experts in the market. It's not about you paying an agency retainer. You're going to own this in-house because that's the smart way to scale in 2026. Hope you're excited. Cool. Secret number one, positioning. Positioning is just ultimately like how are you different from somebody else? And ultimately, this is why your content isn't working right now. And you're probably posting regularly. Your content might get engagement, but doesn't convert the calls. It's because you sound like everybody else in the space, right? And prospects just look at you and they think, I can't articulate how and why this person is actually different at the end of the day. So as it stands, you are perceived as a commodity. And the hard truth here is, who says the thing, right, is 10 times more important than what is being said. And LinkedIn content without clear positioning of why somebody should listen to you is literally pointless. Your ideal clients are going to scroll past you if they can't immediately identify why you're the right choice for their specific problem. How do we do that? And to give this sort of example, I'm going to give you like the example of one of my favorite examples of powerful positioning. It's the McDonald lesson. So I don't know if you guys have heard about, Ray Kroc or watched that film called The Founder, but I was watching it about 2 weeks ago and I couldn't get it out of my head. So back in the 1940s and 50s, the American diner experience was super slow. You couldn't actually go for a drive-in. It just didn't exist. There were so people had to come into their cars, go into the car park up, walk in, and then ultimately wait for people to come to them. So people would ultimately wait up to an hour, even hours for their food. And it was inconsistent service. Every single restaurant looked the same. So they all competed on the only thing left, the price. Then came along Ray Kroc. So Ray Kroc turned out to be, I believe, the corporate partnerships manager. He later on began to usurp the guys that started McDonald's, but that's another story. He spotted McDonald's unique advantage. Burgers served in seconds, not hours. And it was fast, consistent, and predictable. Now, the lesson here is the single point of differentiated value that gave McDonald's its category leader positioning. It was no longer a diner. It was the only in that category at that time. It had category leader positioning. And it means you're going to stop blending in and start owning a space that only you can fill. It's not about being better, guys. It's about being different in the way that matters. So when you do that, you control the story. You set the standard of how you want your service to be perceived, and clients choose you without comparing you. It's how you go from one of many to the one that they want. But how do you actually get there? Well, actually, if I think about the example of McDonald's, you see the power of category leader positioning. They're now worth 200 billion market cap as a company, and they dominate the market. But more importantly, for you and your business on LinkedIn, how do you actually define category leader positioning to differentiate yourself as different from everybody else? We need to nail down who you serve. So we need to get an innate understanding of your dream client, not just age and title. It needs to be shared problems, the goals, the frustrations they feel, the symptoms of how those things show up in their business. We need to go deeper into the tech stack of these companies. What is the culture? How do they work? What is the various business problem that each and every persona that you have cares about, that you're trying to target? And you need to be specific here because, look, if you're not specific, a fuzzy message never converts. Next, on your LinkedIn profile and in your market messaging, you need to make it deadly clear, what do you provide as a benefit? It's all in the result you create. We need to look at what is the transformation our buyers actually want. And it's not the service or the product you think you sell, right? And Andy Bounds, one of my favorite authors, always says this. He says, it's the afters. It's the after transformation. Because if your prospects can't grasp the outcome in seconds, they'll move on to someone that they understand more. Finally, the how. This is your unique mechanism, right? It's the method, system, or philosophy that makes you different and better. And this is what puts you out of the, hey, me too, I'm offering lead gen services, I'll build your LinkedIn brand, to a clear mechanism that makes somebody go, wow, that is a novel way to solve an obvious problem. And this is exactly how you go from just another coach or just another agency to being the person that they want to choose. Now, if I give an example of this, of the power of category leader positioning on LinkedIn, it's from one of my clients, Femric Feketi from Very Creatives. When he first came to us, they were posting 3 times weekly, but not getting like much engagement, 10 likes on a post. They were getting patchy inbound calls. I remember the call with him when he was just like, we haven't added inbound in 3 months and we get everything from LinkedIn, because it was a super specific ideal client persona, non-tech founders looking to build a tech product. And he had generic messaging. Not in a negative way towards him, but it was, hey, I'm a product dev house. But there's loads of them. Now, after we'd worked with Ferry and repositioned him and implemented the Atticus founder-led AI sales system, 8 months later, it was explosive. He went to actually a 7x posting frequency, 2x engagement per post, 4 to 8 calls monthly with an ideal client persona. But perhaps the biggest thing of all was that Ferry was basically getting multiple speaking opportunities from LinkedIn and even landed himself in the top 10 in the entire country, according to Forbes magazine, as a technical founder. This is just somebody from like a creative agency. Like the company is literally less than I believe 5 million in revenue. But the power of category leader positioning led him to that point. Secret number 2. Now that you've built the right sort of foundation, the who, the what, and the how, that is reflected on your LinkedIn profile. I hope you're taking notes on this, guys. You need the system to attract them. And this is where the AI-powered content engine comes into play. And this is how founders are going to attract their ideal clients in under 30 minutes a week as it stands. Now, this is why, most people, this might be familiar to you right now, it might not be, why people never get content to work. No leverage. I don't have enough content to break through in the first place. I can't sit down and write all of my posts for the week where I've got to be on all these sales calls or manage my team. Random posts. We hope to get leads, but we show up every day without a strategy. And then we get super frustrated when nothing happens. And then we get stuck in the how-to content trap. When we do write content, we're like, hey, how to do X, Y, and Z. But the brutal truth, guys, is that in an age of AI, information isn't really important in that sense. It's your expertise that matters. Because if I can pull this from the front page of Google, your buyer does not care about that. They care about your unique positioning, your point of view, and your ideas. And constant effort. People get no results. They try for a couple of months, then they burn out and they quit, and they miss out on one of the biggest opportunities to grow their service business in 2026. Sound familiar? But it doesn't have to be this way. And if you understand this one thing, you will unlock a level of conversion in your content and outbound that you never thought was possible. I know that sounds very hyperbolic, but this was it. When your buyers, right, are in LinkedIn, in their head, there exists this thing called the trust gap. And this is what you're looking at. And this is what your content and outbound messaging must do. They're going to have their current reality, right? They're struggling to get leads. They might not be able to build a tech product in-house. They might be wasting money on ads. They might be worried about where the next client coming on. Their boss might be coming for them and say, hey, look, the forecast better be better before the end of the year, buddy. We're going to be having a tough convo. And then we've got their dream state where everything is perfect. The content must bridge this gap. It must show there is a gap, and it must bridge that by doing the following things. It must create a belief shift, because the person at this current reality is at this current reality because they perceive their problems in a certain way. And in order to get to their dream reality, they need to perceive their problems in a different way, in a higher way. And if you can be the person to change the way that somebody thinks about their problems, and those in sales here probably have heard about the Challenger sale, that's when you get positioned as an authority. And it's the same in outbound. Current reality, dream reality, show the gap, expand the gap, And even going into your sales process, if you literally can create that gap and show your solution as the way, this is it, guys. This is the secret to converting from LinkedIn with content, outbound, and even in your sales process. How do we actually build that? How do you create that gap? That's esoteric, right? We need an indoctrination content ladder. This is the series of content sequences that are built to build that profound trust and guide your prospects from where they are, that present reality, to where they could be and believe that it's possible and see your offer as the solution. Number two, you need an AI content engine in your voice because nobody's got time to write all of their LinkedIn content manually. And if you're still doing that, man, your lunch is being taken by somebody who's got leverage who can create that content themselves. And that allows you to mirror your brand and your personal expertise. Three, you need a weekly content cadence and more importantly, a feedback loop so you can implement and continuously optimize on what works and do less of what doesn't. So you can get the maximum in your impact and growth for the reach of the content, the conversations it can do, and also what you can do from it. So how do you build this indoctrination content ladder? And this idea came about because a couple of months ago, I was watching it was some weird sort of documentary on, like, it was like on Netflix, like how to build a cult or something. And like, they're like, I hope that doesn't like create anybody's eyebrows to raise, but it really struck me that content is kind of similar because content is about building a cult. You're moving people from being super skeptical, right? To being a super fan and literally going, I really trust this person's brand and company and I'm ready to work with them. So a skeptic is somebody who's initially cautious. And this is most people on the market now, guys, because everybody's been burned by poor solutions or experts who weren't really experts, who don't have the receipts. You need to then change that person to curious. They're going to see some initial value and they're open to learning more. They maybe start engaging with your content, but they're trying to understand how you and your approach are unique to solve their capital B business problems, the thing that keeps them up at night. To finally getting them to that point where they become that diehard follower, the fully bought in on your POV, the positioning, on your big ideas, on your unique how, the methodology. And these prospects are actively seeking your solutions. They trust your expertise and are primed for conversion by often becoming advocates themselves. I'm sure some of you might have read the book by Pat Flynn called Superfans. This is what he basically advocates for. But how do you actually create that indoctrination ladder? And it all frames around this high-level concept called old game versus new game. And old game is essentially their present reality. New game is dream reality. And if we want to create the content that converts, you've got to lead your buyers through a belief shift. So here's some examples. This is what the market currently believes and why it's not working. So maybe I'll give you some examples. So on LinkedIn, maybe people realize that the only way to get clients as a service-based business is just, I'm just going to rely on my referrals. I have to do everything manually and I can't build trust. So therefore, I might as well give up on LinkedIn. More activity will equal more results, but we know that that doesn't work. If I just post helpful tips enough, people are going to turn up wanting to buy. That's the old game. That's what's broken about the industry. Now, think about how you could apply that to your industry. What's broken about your industry that you know is broken? Finally, the new game. What do you see as that new way? The answer to that brokenness. I can build trust in my content with leverage. I can get AI that can sound like me. I can have my content pre-sell my ideas before a sales call, and I can scale with tech, not headcount. Everything that you do in your content strategy should be set around that top level piece of between old game versus new game. That's how you're going to take somebody from never having heard of you and being skeptical to latching onto your ideas, really reading your lexicon, and then ultimately buying to you. But how do you map old game versus new game? And it comes down to like 4 really simple questions that we sit down with clients when we do this. Number 1, what's broken about your industry? You can sit there and you can lock yourself in a dark room for a couple of days and you can meditate on this. I know I did. You need to identify the market challenges and why traditional solutions failed to address them. Number 2, you need to understand what is the root cause of why that brokenness exists in the industry for the problem you solve. Because when you uncover the underlying issues, that contribute to the persistent failings in your industry, then that really positions you as an authority in a new way for somebody to think about their problems and ultimately see you as, I guess, the only. Then you need to look at, for these people that are solving their problem in the broken way, and that you have understood the reason why they've got this issue, we need to look at how is your solution architected as the new way. And this is what we define as the new game. You need to define your distinct method, approach that effectively, and show that effectively solves their problem. And the final thing, right, in your content, if once you've mapped this out, you then just stretch out, what are the things that my buyer needs to believe in order to say yes to my offer? So let's like, I guess, maybe workshop this really quick. What's broken? My industry. I went through this before. Root cause and brokenness. Founders have new leverage and they're having to rely on agencies that they don't own the structure from, and they end up paying over the barrel. And then as soon as the agency leaves, they have no expertise. That's what's broken. There's a better way. What's the new way? Having an AA sales system that allows you to own the thing in-house. The buyer shift. You need to believe that having leverage as a founder-led brand is actually going to bring you customers. You need to believe that content is the way to attract the right people to you. Have a think about and reflect after this on how you could apply that to yourself. And you're taking all of these learnings, and you're then going to build and deploy your AI content engine. So we build and deploy ours on ChatGPT. Other LLMs are available. We essentially use that because of the project features, and we just used it from the past. So ultimately, elite founders are not going to write every post that they have. They need something that's going to clone their voice with consistency. And it needs to be a system which will mirror your voice and intent. It needs to be a way that's going to capture your tone and your core beliefs, because it doesn't reflect the core beliefs from the positioning and old game versus new game. What it's going to create will not be enough to move those people down the indoctrination ladder from the present reality to their dream state. And it needs to be on autopilot so it can give you leverage back on your time. So what should you actually post? I hear this all the time. People go, Luke, what should I post on LinkedIn? And then they wonder why they don't get results, because they just like show up and they freestyle it. 3 separate pieces of content. I call this reach content, reframe content, and sell content. You can pick a cadence of 3 to 7 posts, because ultimately, like, the more you post, that is another shot on goal for you to ultimately get to where you want to go. Top of funnel content could look like trends, right? Hey, like, these AI trends are going to have this impact in your industry in X, Y, and Z. We need to share big beliefs to the audience that are also relevant to their potential problems. So a really good example of this is Gallagher on LinkedIn. He has a digital sales room. So he makes big comments on what is broken about AEs and why they can't get executives in the rooms, is because a lot of the time data is disjointed and they need the digital sales room to do it. So he's tapping into a wider sort of narrative and problem. Number 2, probably the most important as all for building trust. Reframe content. We need to break the false beliefs and present your unique solution as the new way forwards. Remember, think about present reality pains, dream state, where they want to go. Indoctrinate them. 3, sell content. This is where you're going to literally show them that you can get the result. Show the receipts, case studies, make it transformational, make it really emotional. And it should be tangible, and it should show them. Now, the pro tip here, guys, is don't get caught up in the biggest mistake that everybody makes on LinkedIn when they're trying to generate leads, is they go, hey, I'm going to start making how-to content. ChatGPT can make me some really good how-to content. Anybody can get Google level information. You'll need to build deep trust and demand for your specific solution by focusing on your unique insights and belief shifts. And that is the whole reason why you go through that placement of positioning, understanding the content indoctrination ladder, and then old game versus new game, to get to this point when you've built an AI GPT trained on content in your voice. So you know that when you create that content, you're not going to shoot yourself in the foot. You're not going to attract an audience of do-it-yourselfers, which is what how-to content does. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, Luke, what are the posts that lead us to that point, that take me from where I am to where I want to go with my clients. So they reach out to me. Now, we could riff on this for hours, but there's a certain structure that when you line it up, you can predictably get leads in weeks, not months. And it usually takes on average about 7 weeks for somebody seeing your content to becoming an inbound lead. A couple of examples. The contrarian take. This is when you're going to challenge an industry norm and you're going to expose outdated beliefs. You're going to do a pro breakdown. You're going to conduct an in-depth analysis as a middle funnel post where you're offering your expert insights on actionable takeaways. You're actually going to tell them how to solve like a top level big challenge that they have. If you may be selling more lower level B2B or B2C or coaching, the humble brag's a good thing, is sharing a recent achievement. But it should be a recent achievement that is relevant to your buyers. And then ultimately a transformation case study where you show them that you can got the result that they want. And perhaps one of them, like the ones that's really underestimated, is just asking your audience if they want to work with you. Like I remember the first time I did this, I said, hey, I'm looking for 5 experts who want to do this, solve this problem, and reach out to me. That one post literally generated about 16 opportunities. And it's because I'd never just asked my audience if they wanted to work with me. As I said, certain structure of those that will lead to that, and something that if people work with us, we map out exactly for you. Now, in the first 30 days, the purpose of the content machine is to attract the buyers. And this is the power of content, guys. This is why we need to do it. It's the content is going to warm the first and second connections in your audience. Second thing that's going to create is the opportunity to create inbound leads. Now, if you don't have many impressions on LinkedIn, it's going to create LinkedIn intent, likes, comments, views, connections, or even just, but maybe people visiting your website. And then ultimately, we're going to use that to book calls into your calendar as it stands. Now, these are just a couple of examples of people's inboxes after implementing some of these systems where we go through the funnel structure and the tech stack at the end, like 300 leads in 1 month. Cool, Brian. Do you wanna come on?
Hey Luke,
I can't hear you, brother.
you can't hear me?
I don't know if it's because there is.
How about now?
It's because hello. Uh, Interesting. Maybe it's because it's in Scarlet USB. I think we didn't anticipate this one, brother. The fact that because it's connected through an audio card, we can't potentially do this. But maybe you could just speak to after each of these questions that I ask, like a little bit about maybe your experience of like working with us and leveraging the system. So my first question is, and you can tell me, give me a thumbs up after you've finished answering the question. Does that sound fair?
Uh, sure. You can't hear me though?
Cool. So, Brian, when we started working together, like what was your like experience before of, like trying to generate consistent leads from LinkedIn?
Um, yeah, thanks for
And
having me.
what
It
was
sounds
would you
like
say is the
everybody,
tipping point that made you, want to try out like a system to get more leverage with a system like Atticus?
yeah. I'm not technology literate enough to know why everybody seems to be able to hear me except for you. But happy to be here and talk through it. Yeah, I think quickly I was kind of digital Rolodex user on LinkedIn. I was kind of in the LinkedIn desert, not spending a whole lot of time really utilizing the key services. Spent a lot of time kind of validating partnerships, potential agencies I wanted to work with, even hunting for clients off the traditional kind of paid advertising, Google land. Now kind of AI would fill that gap. But I wasn't doing anything on LinkedIn. In my industry, for the business that we're building, trust is everything. Yet I was not putting out appropriate content to present that. And so for me, it was kind of recognizing one how I was validating trusting and building relationships with potential partners and clients. Two, trying it myself and miserably failing, just not being able to get the engine built because I wasn't an expert. And once I got to that point, quite honestly, I went to LinkedIn to find trusted partners that might be able to help me on the journey, and Luke was the one that I chose.
Awesome. So like um, I know that we've been running the Attica system a while now, as it stands. What do you feel like have been some of the like the actual results that you've seen, like in terms, like lead flow, time saved, and like overall momentum in your business itself? Do you say, Brian?
Yeah, I think two recent case studies, both happened, I guess, late last week, early this week. The first, we did a post just talking about as we want to build more content and become more of a media company ourselves. We're considering building a podcasting studio, and within like 2 days, I got 5 different invites to sit on other people's podcasts, simply because of that reach. Now, are those going to be clients, customers? Not necessarily, but they're entirely on target for what we were talking about. And just opening that door of like, hey, I sit on podcasts, I have my own podcast, and I do many of these things. Uh, Within like 48 hours, I got 5 invites to sit on relevant podcasts. So that's one. Two, got a DM 2 days ago from somebody that had just seen a comment that I made in a relevant LinkedIn post. They went down, in their words, went down the Brian Dukes rabbit hole on LinkedIn. And I'm an M&A advisor. That's the business that we're building. He has not one, but 2 businesses that he's thinking about selling. And the only reason he reached out to me is because he, in his words, thought I was the real deal based on all the content and expertise that I was presenting on LinkedIn. So, I think LinkedIn, there's not a perfect or absolute KPI, just like most advertising. I look at it as building a foundation of content, relevance, and trust. And if you can do that consistently, talk about the right messages over time, all we've seen is building success.
Thank you so much, Brian. Really appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for coming on today and sharing your experience.
Happy to.
Cool. So the biggest thing here in building the founder-led brand like Brian saw and what ExitWise have done is the consistent visibility being seen across multiple channels as it stands. And it's about establishing omnipresence without the daily grind, right? It's about having the unshakable credibility and trust. So you build deep rapport with your audience and your buyer, so you look like the go-to expert in your field. And it's about having the time for what matters most, right? And for Brian, like before we started working together, he'd said to me, hey, like, I'm writing content on the weekends. I just like to get my weekends back. It's about reclaiming hours for the sales, for your product innovation, for your personal freedom, for the whole reason you started building a business in the first place. Secret number 3, guys. Thank you for meeting us this far, and we're getting towards the bonuses at the end as well as the Q&A. But this is the third and final part. If we don't master this, we will never be able to get LinkedIn to work predictably for us. And it's the trust-led outbound and AI Attica stack. Now, why is this even more important than ever? I don't know if people saw this recently, but this is why LinkedIn lead generation is broken and it's getting worse. The landscape, right, of LinkedIn has shifted dramatically. Once worked is now ineffective. LinkedIn has just changed its rules, dropping daily sends from 800 open accounts of people you could contact to a second connections or third connections to 100. Yes, 100. Outreach volumes have halved per person. 1,200 to 600. Spray and pray is officially dead. The market has become immune to spam, and we've entered a quality first era. I know, Stephen, absolutely wild, absolutely wild. But you can't win with volume anymore. You need to win on trust, right? And this is what it looks like. And this is why traditional lead gen fails. People don't position themselves correctly, so they don't look different. They send cold generic DMs that burn their reputation. And the content, they either have no content because they don't have the time to create it, or the content never produces the right engagement, the likes, the comments, the views, and the connections to actually get a result. So what does trust-led outbound look like? This is about having conversations with people that already like, know, and trust you, right? At the end of the day. And it's about warming your prospects. You're going to use your content to attract the right sort of comments, likes, views, connections. And these people are going to engage with your content and fit your ideal client persona profile. Then we need to personalize towards them with a sending tool that we're going to get onto to reference specific details that prove you've done your research and understand their unique situation. Samantha McKenna, a sales coach I love, says, show me you know me. 2026 will be the year of this. Value first approach. We need to lead with insight. It's not enough to go, hey, buy my system. You look like the guy showing up to the door with like suits going, hey, do you want to buy these suits? Doesn't work. And we need to offer resources so we can begin to bridge that trust gap there, because that's where everybody's starting. And then ultimately how we lead that into natural conversation so it builds this right sort of dialogue. And this approach is 10 to 15x better than traditional outbound. And it is the exact reason that our clients, when they've worked with us, have moved from 1% response rate on InMail and 15% response rate and connection rate to literally seeing 15 to 20% response rate on InMail, all the way up to anywhere from 30 to 60% response rate on the actual connection campaign, depending on where that person came in intent, whether it was like a connection or from a comment or from content. But how do we actually get there? And I think Jonathan is a great example of this. Jonathan Crowder is a VC. We worked with him a couple of months ago, and he essentially wanted to bring his service, Founders Ally, to market. He had a go-to-market agency. This is exactly how he drove 20 deals in 20 days and closed 30K in net new revenue on multiple six figures in pipeline. It was about a 30 to 40% response rate in using that trust-led outbound motion. 30 SQLs in 90 days and 30K of net new revenue as it stands. And look, there's no capping here. These are the receipts. Like, this is, Jonathan was like, hey, like, guys, like with the time that I've worked with you, I've done about $30,000 as it stands. And he's since done even more than that from this. So you're probably thinking, Luke, like, how do I do this? This is why your activity isn't compounding. Most messages are generic, so no trust equals no response. And without a foundation of credibility, your outreach gets missed and dismissed as spam. Like 95% of cold emails literally just go into the void. You don't retarget your lost or ghosted leads. Valuable prospects fall through the cracks because you don't follow up with them effectively. You have no motion to effectively re-engage them. You're not building off content and profile signals. So you're knocking on doors selling suits, again, that analogy. And when you ignore these vital engagement cues from your audience, from like likes, comments, views, connections, you're operating blindly. You're missing opportunities for connection, and you don't have an intent loop. Every lead from cold starts from this point. And each new outbound feels like starting from scratch. And it's because without the trust, the outbound is a treadmill. It is spam. But with trust, it becomes a flywheel. Now, the fastest path to pipeline. So like whenever we work with a client, they say, hey, look, we want to get this going, big investment, 14K, let's transform our business. How do you make sure we pay for ourselves? We're going to identify the warm leads. We compile lists of closed lost deals. You can do this yourself when you launch your own campaign. We go after and we collect all of the ghosted no's and no-show leads and old conversations. We then cross-reference these contacts with current ideal prospect criteria. Then what we're going to do is we're going to start with these lists of low-hanging fruits, and we're going to begin to do personalized outbound to these people. And we're going to engage with highly relevant personalized messages to acknowledge each and every action. And it depends on how they engaged before. It might be specifically the challenges that they come to us when the last time they work with us for a client. It could be maybe they had a recent funding round in their business that also might make it sense for us to reach out. It could be that maybe they have a VP moving into their role that might make it more likely for them to finally make a change if the champion had left. The bottom line is you need to implement this revenue speed run so you can get quick results in your outbound. And these are a couple of receipts. It's like seeing response rates of 39%. Like, this is one of our consulting clients, Joya. She last month drove about, I think it was 40 meetings from LinkedIn, and that allowed her to close in the last month, 2 months, $80,000. Receipts here. Good for her, man. So this is why LinkedIn activity doesn't compound. And this is getting to the point where we are going to know exactly how to package these tools together to actually build this yourself. Founders do constant activity, man. They're trying to do everything manually. They don't know the way in which things are lined up to build a funnel that predictably gets them those leads, and it leads to burnout. So how do we get them there? This is the AI outbound engine, the AI demand engine that pieces all of this together. We've got the positioning at the top. We've mapped out your big ideas. We've mapped out the who, the what, and the how. Once we've dialed in as different, now it's time to add a content layer. You're going to build a GPT to generate and repurpose belief shifting content, but it has to be programmed on old beliefs, old game versus new game. It has to be basically programmed on those types of content as well, the top of funnel, middle, reframe, and sales content. And it has to drive that thing, because the whole reason we do this, guys, is to drive the profile visits, the likes, the comments, and the brand impressions. Now, the second piece is the outbound layer, and this is the prep for your outbound motion, sending messages to those likes, comments, and views. You can leverage a tool like Ocean.io, amazing tool to look at, okay, who are my ideal clients, and build lookalike lists. So every person you reach out to is a perfect fit. So I could take an amazing client like Brian, and I could find 100, 200 people like him. So I know that whenever I get in touch with this person, I can lead with insight. I can lead with the fact that I can actually solve their problem with a specific use case. And we then would leverage a tool like Clay or Valley to look at the scoring, because not all leads, right, are going to be like the same. You're going to have high fits, you're going to have medium fits, you're going to have low fits. And if you manually sort through that yourself, you're going to be there a pretty long time. So we leverage a tool like Clay or Valley to score all of those prospects. And we segment those lists by event triggers. Now, it depends on what is important to your clients. So if we go back to Jonathan, his was people who were looking for help with funding and pitching their startup. We went and looked at Crunch basis, found a load of lookalike audiences for people who just raised, and then contacted out and basically mentioned, hey, I saw that you'd raised. I wondered if X, Y, and Z is top of mind for you right now. So the actual Trusted AI Outbound Motion is a mix of picking your outbound sender. There's many on the market as it stands. Now, some, they're not all created equal, and I can tell you the best ones. A tool like Valley AI, amazing to do this. AimFox, a lot cheaper than Valley, but doesn't give you as many lead scoring abilities, and it doesn't also allow you to integrate with a tool like Instantly to send that personalization over email. And these tools allowed you to send out at a frequency of I believe now it's slightly lower on email. So you'd be able to do 200 personalized emails a month to your perfect prospects as it stands from lookalike lists and your revenue speed run. That's where I'd be focusing for that cap. And then I'd also be looking at for the connections. I would be looking at doing 15 connects a day. And that is going to allow you to increase your response rates when programmed the right way, when programmed on your offer, on your ideal client persona, from 1% on email and 50% on connections to anywhere from literally 20 to 60 on the actual connections piece to 15% plus on email. Miraculous. So the AI is going to build the lists, the AI writes the messages, but you need to know what good copywriting looks like, and you get the meetings. Then finally, the conversion layer, knowing exactly what to ask the clients so when they get in front of you. So I had a chat with a founder the other day who was like, Luke, I don't want a fire hose. I'm worried this is going to be too effective. And I said, look, pre-call vetting questions using Calendly. Are they qualified? Can they afford your solution? Or who else involved in the decision? So yeah, this is ultimately that. Results compound over time, guys. Most notice results improve week over week if you implement the system yourself. You could expect by week 6 to be scaling up to 5 to 10 qualified deals monthly, enough to consistently hit those revenue targets, but full ramp often happens at the 12 weeks as it stands. So Joya doubled her business with this 30-minute system. Joya is one of my consulting clients. She runs a leadership clients thing where she takes women leaders and she helps them to become authorities. And she used to spend her weekends writing for LinkedIn, never spending time with a partner, bless her. Inconsistent lead flow. So she was always biting her nails every month going where's my clients coming from? And she was capped out at about 150K in revenue after literally being 8 years running the business. And she had constant stress about, look, where's my next client coming from? Being in front of the slide and the TV and scrolling on a phone and worrying. And after implementing the system in her business, in about 10 months. She went from the writing on the weekends to 30 minutes daily, ran by her VA. So she doesn't even touch the content or the lead gen. She has that almost agency level tech in her business. She's booking 30 to 40 calls a month, and she scaled to a 350K annual run rate. But the biggest thing for her is she got her weekends back. Happy times. There you go. Just the receipts. This is like what it's all about. And like, this is the reason why we do what we do and why we build the systems. Now, Outbound really only works, like I'm going to iterate these big ideas to you before we tie this off for the Q&A. Cold outreach isn't dead, but bout outreach is, guys. You've got to move beyond generic efforts. AI can enhance personalization, but it's not going to replace you. You need to scale AI, use AI to scale this with authentic, tailored interactions done with actual market research with unique point of views, which is the whole point of doing the prep of what we spoke about before, the positioning layer. Trust building is not optional anymore. It's your competitive edge. And in a noisy market, genuine connection is the only way that you will win in 2026. And the Atticus stack simplifies and systematizes all of this. Now, fork in the road time. You can DIY and hope. You can take the recording of this webinar. You can try and paste together this entire thing yourself. You can spend months like we did, months and months, probably 6 months, testing AI tools, refining your positioning, learning your outbound strategy, learning sales copywriting, and risk burning out your audience with trial and error. Or the second path here is build it, that we can build it with you. Let us implement this system with you over, this actually says 4 weeks, it's 6 weeks, and leverage our proven framework, tested AI models, and battle-tested processes so we can actually get you generating predictable pipeline. Now, the difference here is it's time to results, it's opportunity cost of what it would take you to work this out yourself, and the confidence that, you're building something that's actually going to work. I mean, hours are dollars in business and startup land. So what are we going to do for you over 6 weeks? This is about getting you ready for Q1. So when Q1 comes around, you've got this system in your business, which is delivering you 5 to 10 deals per month. So you hit the ground running, and that's per profile. 6 weeks, we're going to complete the system installation on the Atticus AI demand engine with weekly coaching calls. I'm setting this up for you. I only need 3 hours of your time over this entire period of time to get this going. We're going to build this for you. No template, no course. And it's going to lead to predictable deal flow. You should start to see qualified calls after weeks 2 to 3 and full pipeline by the end of the sprint with a full ramp up by 90 days. Now, what's actually included? This is what we usually charge, guys, as it stands. We usually do a positioning and offer workshop. We usually do an AI ghostwriter setup and the AI sales rep setup. We do the funnel booking system as well for how you can get the right people on the calls. And we also do 12 weeks of coaching on our usual 3-month program. And this means that you can have this predictable demand-led engine in under 30 minutes a day. However, because you've caught me at a good time and because it's the end of the year and because it's almost Christmas, the total value of the 3-month program is $15,000. But your special offer investment today for attending this event is $7,500. And this is not a discount. This is you saving $7,500 to implement this predictable system for growth in your business, because we take the exact same flagship system and condensed it into a 6-week sprint so you hit Q1 with momentum, right? And one closed deal covers the cost, and most clients recoup their investment within those first 30 to 45 days. Now, you should see from the chat as it stands, the ability to book a call. And just by booking a call, you will get $1,200 worth of bonuses after we finish the sales call together. Bonus number 1, you're going to get LinkedIn content templates that help to generate 125 million in pipeline. That's a little typo. Bonus 2, you're going to get 5 proven DM templates that will instantly allow you to move towards much higher response rates, and in some cases, 40% response rates on connection campaigns. You're going to get authority content hooks. So you're going to be able to get high performing content that positions you as a category leader and can generate that right sort of engagement. Now, that's about a $1,200 worth of bonus, and it's yours for free when you book a call from the link below in the right-hand side in the chat. So, not only are we also given the way they shop on this webinar. But every single piece and system comes with an 100% pipeline guarantee. And listen, I've done this with over 100 plus business owners in the last 3.5 years. So this is why I can hang my hat on the results. So if you implement the Atticus AI sales system as directed and we build it for you and it doesn't generate the pipeline sufficient enough to close at least one deal within 90 days, we'll continue to work with you at no additional cost until you've done that. So if all this did was, guys, is book 10 calls a month, 10 qualified calls, and you are having consistent discovery calls with your prospects who already understand your value and they're ready to buy. And if it could just help you close one 10K client, I mean, we've got some people here from companies doing like multiple millions. They have ACV of 50 to 100. If one single client pays, if one single client signs, it pays for the entire system. And most clients will close multiple deals in those first 90 days. And if all it did was replace your manual LinkedIn work where you're stuck in the DMs manually booking in meetings and it frees up 10 hours a week whilst generating those better results, would it be worth that $7,500? For most founders, this represents the highest opportunity leverage investment of the last year as it stands. And we're only doing 5 slots on this. And that will end at Tuesday, the 2016th, which is this Tuesday at midnight. And after in January, the investment for this exact same system will rise by 30% to $18,250 in January for new clients outside of this offer because of demand. Now, the cost of waiting here, guys, is, I mean, joining up the dots here is pretty simple. Every week that we delay is just another time of losing out on unpredictable pipeline. It's settling for wasted hours of manual work on LinkedIn when there's a better way out there. It's opportunities going to your competitors as they eat your lunch and build similar systems like this. It's revenue you could have closed. It's momentum you could have built. And it's what you could gain. There's an opportunity cost to indecision, which is what I always say to people. It's like predictively getting those deals and calls monthly. It's moving towards a 30-minute daily system that allows you to map all of your content in the right way and know you're doing the right thing. It's actually looking different from everybody in the market. And starting the year with people saying, I get you and I know what you do and there's nobody else like you on the market. And it's closed deals and revenue and compounding results over time. So if you're already making 100K to 5 million and above, and you've got a proven offer and you're making money, the only thing missing for you right now, guys, I know because I've been there, is a predictable way to fill your pipeline. And this system shows that. So what actually happens next? And we're going to move into the Q&A after this. Book your strategy call from the link in the Zoom chat. This, you need to click that button to schedule a strategy session. This will only be available to book on this call. Like this will self-destruct after this call. So you need to lock in your slot to be at batch. You don't need to make a decision if you want to go forward with the 7.5K deal. But in order for you to get those bonuses, you would need to book this now. Step 2, we're going to go through and see if you're a fit. And you'll also have access to those bonus materials after that call. If we think you're a fit, we'll set up your setup call, and then the sprint begins literally next week to get you ready for Q1. And it's all about positioning. Then we layer in the AI systems, and then we get you to the point of having that working pipeline system in 6 weeks. And then the results start flowing. Q1 starts to look predictable and potentially the best you've had yet. Cool. So let's open this up. FAQ. What has come up for you guys over the course of this presentation? I usually offer about a consulting call for about $1,000 an hour. This is your time now to ask me a question about anything that we've gone through as it stands. And while I wait for people in the chat, I'm going to paste that link again and move over some common FAQ. Stephen, so if I don't have a ton of previous book calls, I get a ton of engagement, who should I start reaching out to first, you think? This is a really great question. So if you don't have like a ton of previous book calls, you're going to have to rely more on outbound initially. But just because like outbound, just because you don't have a ton of content engagement, it doesn't mean that people aren't viewing your content. So our highest performing clients, Stephen, as it stands, actually have the content engine in place. They have a consistent flow of content. They have a higher connection rate. And when you have a higher connection rate, more people, that allows you to actually get more follow-ups sent and book more calls as it stands. You'll also have to dial in more to colder audiences and leverage more lookalikes. So I would be leveraging a tool like Ocean to really work out, okay, what are the burning problems that these ideal client personas have as it stands in their niche? Can I get lookalikes of the clients that I already have and then focus on those people? Now, you might find that response rate's a little bit lower because it's purely a cold audience, but as you're ramping up your AI outbound engine, you're going to get more of the right sort of engagement, which allows that trust-led outbound loop to really come into play. Hope that helps. Anyone else? Cool. Here's one from myself. My customers aren't on LinkedIn. Will this still work? This is, I hear this like so much. Yes, for two reasons. We're writing for the invisible audience of LinkedIn. Most executives are browsing LinkedIn and your buyers are there, even if they're not commenting. But also, if we think about the actual piece of how in-mails work, in-mails trigger email notifications. I don't know if you guys knew this. And you can land directly in your prospect's inbox. So you can actually send a message to someone in email and it goes into their email that's registered with LinkedIn. So you can hit them with multi-channel approach without even setting up a tool like Instantly or Clay to reach out to them wherever they are. Another thing that I may have, how quickly do you usually follow up with people after connecting? Yeah, great question. So I would often usually use like a blank connection campaign as it stands. And then we would probably want to follow up with them like after like engaging with their content on LinkedIn, like, you know, you yourself liking, leaving meaningful comments to warm them up a little bit, and then sending them a message about 2 to 3 days later once you're more top of mind. And then from that point, moving them through the funnel as it stands. Hope that helps. Now, people might be thinking, hey, this is a little bit shorter than your usual program. Will this still work? Yes, exact same program. The only difference is we've removed the done for you element for those final 6 weeks, and you'll be able to run this yourself in less than 30 minutes by the program end. Okay, great question. What are the scenarios, types of companies that don't work well with your system? That's a really great question. I would say, Jeff, people who are going after, like, who have complex sales processes where maybe they're like potentially like operations leaders or IT, like not IT program leaders, but operations leaders, or maybe they're going after developers who commonly are not as active on LinkedIn, but also for these deal cycles, it's more complex. So there's more people involved. If you're selling to 1 to 2 ICPs or even 3 ICPs, it's the perfect channel to do that. And if you're in software as a service, consulting, sales, agency, lead gen, SEO, you couldn't get a better channel for it, because Sales Navigator is the biggest B2B database there actually is for you to actually get met with your ideal clients. I hope that helps. You show results from founders who already have momentum. Will this work for someone who doesn't have a big audience or past engagement? Well, as it stands, Brian actually didn't have any momentum when he first started this. He literally had 1,000, like less than 1,000 connections. And then even though that was the case, he still allowed him to drive significant revenue from LinkedIn and those initial inbounds in those first 3 months and outbounds as it stands. True story, Brian. Love it. As I've said before, in order to get to that point, I'm getting distracted by all the questions in the chat. This is amazing, guys. Thank you for being such an amazing audience and being so engaged. Love it. in order to actually kickstart this with any program, like where somebody doesn't have that much traction on LinkedIn, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference of whether we get the results. The only difference is the level of intent that the results that you're going to get, right? So like initially when we first start, if somebody doesn't have any sort of connections on LinkedIn as it stands, or maybe they don't have like a big audience, they're still going to book meetings, but they're going to have to, like the meetings that they're going to get are going to be a little bit colder as it stands. They're still going to be with timing and intent, which makes them a bit better than what they had before. But yeah, like you can still get those initial results. But as time builds, when you actually get consistent on LinkedIn and have the right strategy, every opportunity coming from that point will improve. What does realistic ROI look like, and how long does it take for someone to break even after implementing this system? So as it stands, I'd say a realistic ROI timeframe classically for this would look like ROI within those first like 2 to 3 months, because it's going to take 90 days to get this to fully ramp up. We can't skip the groundwork as it stands. Because if you think about this, a sales rep takes about 90 days to hit full pipeline capacity anyway. And like having a system set up like this is no different. Jonathan was still able to plug this in. And as it stands, like literally 90 days later, he had a 3x ROI in the 90 days that he plugged this in as it stands. But also it depends on the type of offer you have too. So if like Laura, if you've got an enterprise sales cycle and your deal cycle length is like, I don't know, 6 to 9 months, it would be unreasonable to say, hey, it's going to get an ROI in 90 days. But when you win big, because your ACV is likely to be massive, like it was for Brian. One deal for Brian generated from the system coming in is like $250,000. So then LinkedIn does become very tangible, even for people with slower deal cycles and high ACV. What do you recommend for graphics with LinkedIn content? I see a lot of advice, but I don't know who to listen. Oh, sorry, Stefan. Already using a ghostwriter. Do I need one when using your system? No, Stefan, you do not need a ghostwriter. I have found that the most effective means of creating founder-led content is when either we have an incredibly high touch point with a founder done for you, but the price is significantly higher, and that's your fixed costs, or you having a machine which is programmed on the highest level of LinkedIn content. So when we do this, we build out like a bank of reference content in your voice from mapping out your POV, mapping out old game versus new game. So when you come, you can look at that program calendar that we've built for 6 months of content that has already been tested to get those inbound lead results, as it stands, Stefan, that you can pick one idea from your calendar and then finesse it yourself and create an entire week of content in 30 minutes. And that also runs you to run leanly, but also have less Chinese whispers, because that's what's going to happen unless you really know a client and you've had a ghostwriting client for years as it stands. I hope that answers your question.